So I wanted to go over why I didn't like the HBO series Last of Us. So I love and appreciate like creative drive, and like as I shared in my last video, like I love a good story that I can get lost in, and there's tons of good stories that are creative that don't jive with me, that don't, I could appreciate them, whatever, but they're not really up my alley. And I don't really know, I can't dissect all the reasons, why a good story is a good story, or what, I can kind of see a little bit of the structure or call out a little bit of it, but I don't know, like the hero's journey or whatever, but I don't know. I didn't take a college class in good story. I just know what it feels like for me, that's all. And I am a consumer of good stories, for me in my life, what I consider good stories. And Last of Us, the video game, is one of the greatest stories that I've heard and played and participated in my life. When the first series came out on HBO, I was super stoked and I liked it. I thought it was great. It made me feel like watching the series, I could see why, like, they made brave changes, and those changes felt like they landed for me. For example, the way that the infected, the way that they like come to an area, they're like all connected through this fungi, and if you flick one of the things, or if you make them aware in a certain area, they'll flock there. That's not in the game. They made that change and it landed. I could see it made sense, and it landed so well that as an OG Last of Us fan, it almost felt like the movie was the real story, like what really happened almost, and the game was like the embellishment, is how well it landed. I thought Ellie, Bella Ramsey, was outstanding. I thought she was the perfect cast pick for Ellie in part 1. I thought Joel, I can't remember his name, I thought who they picked for Joel was outstanding. I thought the relationship tensions and the core elements of the game, the tensions, the feelings between Ellie and Joel, the story that was being told, about the dynamics of a messy, frustrated life, and then coming together. I thought they did a good job where there was that Joel and Ellie connection, and I thought it was done well. And yeah, so, and the thing that made me trust it was the writer, Neil Druckmann, I can never remember how to pronounce his last name. He's a brave, daring, bold, creative genius in storytelling. And that's why I trusted season 2. And why it hurt when it just did not land. And in my opinion, why it can't land, why I gave up at episode 3, why I won't watch the rest, and why I won't put any effort in watching any of the rest to give it any more attention. And will very sadly, hesitantly play episode. That's what makes it. But I can't go there, because then I get too emotional, and then I start, going on a rant instead of sharing my thoughts. So I felt that season 2 made, in the beginning, there were some cool changes that I thought, like I said before, with the fungus and how they were repairing some piping, and there was some living fungus inside that, and so it made sense that that was really cool. It was like, because in the game, all of a sudden there's just this massive horde around Jackson, and that's when Abby, Joel and Tommy save Abby. But it's never really known why, and it's just like, oh, there was just a random horde. Well, in the movie, in the show, it's kind of cool that it answers that. There was like this tiny little living fungi in one of the pipes, and that was connected to this massive infected group, and so they were coming to attack Jackson, and so that was a pretty cool element that they added that was pretty cool. But for me, one of a few of the core elements to part 2, to season 2, should have been Ellie, her character's dynamic, the vibe of the town, the relationship between Ellie and Dina, and then, what happened to Joel. All of those things should have been top priority, and in my opinion, they were missed. So, having said that all of those things are important, I was just thinking about it, and I can't remember in the first season my different complaints, because they held the core of it together so strong, in my opinion, that I didn't have to question, it was all fine. All of those, if I had any weirdness things, they got the vibe right. They stayed true to the core, and so it was all good. Where this one, the vibe was off, and so it allowed my mind to wander onto other things that I probably wouldn't have noticed. And so I'm going to try to not talk about those things as much, because I feel like they're more, secondary. And what I'm talking about with that is like, I noticed that the clothes were clean and new. They probably fit the scenes, but they were clean and new, and that really bothered me. But like I say, I don't know that I would have noticed if I wasn't already bleeding from feeling like they missed the mark. Does that make sense? I think I could have, looked past that and not been, totally looked past it. It's just like, whatever. Because I wanted to love the show. I sat there excited. I mean, good God, this is my jam. I'm there as a supporter. I'm not there hoping that my favorite story of all time gets, shit on. And I don't think they wrote it to shit on it. I don't think that was, I'm just here as a consumer talking about it. And I want to talk about it. I want to express my feelings about it because it matters to me. They've created a story. Neil and his team have created a story that matters to me. And so expressing it feels important, So for me, the vibe, I think it starts with Ellie. And Ellie is, as I shared before, she's one of those video game characters. Ashley Johnson acts her, and is largely responsible for, I think, the creation of this character Ellie. I mean, she was probably dreamed up in Neil's mind, but the fleshing her out and the becoming her was largely, I'm sure, Ashley and the writers collaborating together, and then working with, I can't remember Joel's voice actor, another famous voice actor guy. But that created Ellie, and my experience with Ellie, to me, she's just the greatest video game character ever, I think. So it's already just, huge, massive shoes to fill. I acknowledge that, and I think Bella Ramsey in the first season did an outstanding job. It makes sense why you'd want to cast her in the second one. And I want to be clear, to Bella, I'm sensitive. If she heard this, I fully support somebody taking a job and giving their best at a job. I saw her in Game of Thrones. She did outstanding there. She's a fantastic, phenomenal actress, and she gave it her best. Having said that, I feel like the vibe from Ellie in season 2 was off. And it was off in a way that missed the mark. Ellie, for me, in Last of Us Part 2 is jaded, damaged, still super spunky and goofy and jokey, mission first. She's head over heels for Dina, but that's not the focus of her life right now. She's revenge first and angry. She's scrappy and manipulative. She's a great leader, but only because she's not interested in following somebody else's agenda unless it aligns with hers, I found Jackson to be, the vibe in Jackson was cool in a way, but it didn't land for me with the Last of Us world. It felt too prim and proper. It didn't feel survivalistic to me. When there's the town council that happened with Ellie, so when Ellie had to be in the hospital for 3 months, and when there was the town council where she had to, Jesse encouraged her to read that letter, I felt betrayed, I think. I was just wondering where Ellie went. And I recognize, as a writer and as all that, like, that is a tough thing to figure out. I'm not trying to dismantle that, or I'm not trying to, I don't know. I'm not a writer. But they did it with the first one. I don't know. All I do know is the vibe fell flat for me. But the worst offense was Ellie and Dina. As I shared in my love of the game and my love of Last of Us Part 2, the Ellie-Dina relationship, the storytelling of their relationship was masterful. It was masterful. It was almost one of those relationships that, I don't even know what to say. I don't really want to say anything about it, because for me it was special. It was a really special relationship, and I have part of myself judging myself, because like, it's a video game, who cares, you know. But they're telling this story and it resonated with me. I got it. It clicked for me in the game. And so the strong offense for me was not only was Ellie's vibe in the season 2 off and flat from the game, the relationship with Dina wasn't there. And I can't handle. I couldn't handle that. You know, it's kind of like, if you're building the building blocks of a story, you got to get a few of the linchpins, or a few of the cornerstones solid, so that you can build off of those things. And for me, Last of Us Part 2, some of those cornerstones are the Ellie Dina relationship, the Ellie vibe, the Ellie Dina relationship, and then of course one of the other ones that I think is more prominent for most people and for me, but I guess I've talked about it less, is because I think it is more prominent and my feelings are more along the lines of the Ellie Dina relationship. But of course the Ellie and Joel relationship, and that felt off in this one too. You know, where there was the death scene with Joel. They did a good job, and it would be a tough one to recreate. But it was a miss, you know. And I'm not downplaying the challenge of the story writing or any of that. I'm just disappointed because I have such high expectations with Neil and with this story in general, that you gotta hold it special and not release it unless it lands right. And so specifically a couple vibe checks that really burned. I mean, I was already frustrated by here, but the vibe checks that really burned. When Ellie was so this was one of the stumbling blocks. When Ellie was being scrappy with Jesse, I think it was Jesse, or it might have been another guy, where they were like practicing fighting. It felt like she was kind of close to Ellie. Like, I felt some effort and some what is the word? Vitriol, maybe? I felt some like angst and scrappiness, but I didn't see Ellie, you know. And then in the 3-month time where she was in the hospital, that was not enraging yet, but that was really frustrating, because that Ellie wouldn't have put up with that. She just absolutely would not have put up with that. And the show showed that she was kind of like annoyed with it and frustrated and wanting to get out and all that. But Ellie just wouldn't have put up with it. And then having to go to the town council meeting and plead her case and creating some emotionally mature paper that she could have had ChatGPT write. And it felt like she could have, because like I say, the town felt like manners mattered more than survival. The town of Jackson, it felt more like manners, like they were more advanced in their manners than they were in their survival, which, okay, cool. But that doesn't fit the vibe from Last of Us that I'm familiar with, you know, from the game. So that it didn't pass the vibe check. In The Last of Us in the game, it almost felt like yeah, you're in survival mode, but you're also, it was just this town of hope. And I don't know that, but the town of Jackson in here, it just, I don't know, it was too much. There's where I don't quite have the words. It just felt too much to me. And then there were some changes that rubbed me very wrong, which was, in the beginning, it was Ellie and Jesse that went out, not Ellie and Dina. And that's a beautiful part in the game where Ellie and Dina go out and they've got their horse, and they end up in the weed den. Excuse me. And in the movie, it's Ellie and Jesse, and they end up in the weed den. And I just don't understand why they didn't just keep it to the story, because those were the nuggets of the Ellie and Dina relationship that were they're just special. And why did you change it? And then this is where I don't really know how to speak it. It's just the feeling. Because Ellie's character didn't vibe with me in the second season, I didn't feel, I guess I just can take the emotion out of it. I didn't feel like the Ellie-Dina relationship landed. Where they had their little moments, where they did to me, Ellie's character still seems very young, meaning very young. And so it almost felt weird to have kind of this relationship with Dina, because as the viewer, I was just kind of like, she seems young for this to be like being portrayed on TV. You know, it wasn't the type of romantic relationship where it feels safe to be like, oh, that's special. You know, that's, and so when they did start having their moments where they I guess the moment where they were in the tent was the attempt for the weed den moment. And for me, it was such a catastrophic miss that for me, that's when the whole show, I decided, I was like, no, because it's like if you're building I don't know, you're building a fence, you know, like a chain link fence, and you've got your post, you've got to dig it into cement. It would be like if that cement just broke and shattered and your post is just hanging. There's no way you can build a fence around it. You've got to redo the whole thing. And even at that point, it's like, you lost me. It felt clunky. It felt awkward. Like I said before, it felt, you know, she's too young. It just didn't fit the character mold. And that's frustrating to me, because I would have wanted that to have been taken care of and caught by Neil before they put it out. So, because after that, there's nothing that you can't do anything with the story. It's all too weird, and it doesn't do the actual story justice. And so that's why I'm mad about it, is because the actual story is incredible. And so they missed the mark on that. And and because of that, you know, I feel like the vibe they had with Jackson and the changes that they made felt weird. And then, you know, the change in Ellie's character felt really weird. When she came to the scars, when, you know, all the Seraphites were had been killed, she had like this sudden empathy for them, that increased her rage, or increased her desire to get after Abby. And I just didn't feel like that matched up with the Ellie in the game. I think Ellie was really focused on the mission, and she was in a survivalistic world her entire life, and it just felt off. And I guess there's part of my brain that is like, okay, so it felt off, no big deal. What's the problem? But when it's your favorite story, it matters, because this is the chance. This is the time. It's not like Last of Us remake comes out all the time. It's like, okay, once it's gonna be here, and then it's gonna go away. And I wanted it to land and not crash. And so for me, it crashed, and that was really disappointing. And so yeah, I feel like I could articulate my feelings better with why the vibe shifted. But I can't, I'm not a movie critic. All I can say is the vibe didn't match. As a fan to my core of the games, the second season vibe didn't match. And that was really disappointing and disheartening. And I won't be giving any more seasons a chance. I'm basically done with the HBO series. And very, very cautiously and nervously will be playing if there's a third Last of Us, I will be playing it. But I don't know. We'll see. If and when that comes, we'll see. But I guess lastly, I love the game. I so grateful that games like this get made, that people are still out there with a desire to tell a story, to have integrity and world building around their story and have it matter. Because on one hand, it is just a story. It's not actually like doing anything. It's just telling a story. But on the other hand, what else do we have? These stories, this art, this is precious. And it makes me sad, especially seeing video games monetized to the degree they are, where they become these bigger businesses that, you go to the start screen and you see like, pay money for this cool armor over here. It's like, it makes me want to gag, because I don't personally, I don't vibe with that. I love losing myself in a good story, feeling held, or having my emotions go on a journey, or expanding my mind in some way, or maybe getting my beliefs challenged in certain ways, or letting myself play in a way, in a really fun way, letting my imagination go run wild. And I just appreciate, these good stories to my core. And so, keep making those stories. So that's all. Thanks.